This screencast will demonstrate how to create a survey using Google Form, collect responses, and analyze the findings. So I'm going to start off in Google Chrome, and I'm going to navigate to Google Drive, which is the home of Google Docs, Google Forms, Google Presentations. And once this loads, I'm going to click on the Create button. And I'm going to choose Form. Now I'm going to click in the Untitled Form box, and I'm going to give my form a title. And for this demonstration, I'm going to create a form on web accessibility. So I'm going to click in the Untitled Form box for title and type in web accessibility. And then I'm going to choose a theme. There are a variety of themes, and for this one I'm going to choose header blue, and I'm going to click OK. Now, form description is found below the title, and this is an area where you can inform your respondents about what the survey is, the purpose of the survey, and what they can expect in the survey. And so this survey is on web accessibility. The purpose of this survey is to better understand the perceptions of internet users regarding web accessibility. And my respondents may not know what web accessibility means, so I'm going to define it for them. Web accessibility refers to the inclusive practice of creating websites so that they are usable by individuals of all abilities, providing individuals with disabilities access without barriers. And then I'm going to tell them what I want them to do. Please complete the following questions. And tell them about what the survey is for. The survey is for a class project, and results will not be published. And then I'm going to thank them for doing this survey. Thank you so much for your time. Okay. And now I have the space to add questions. One question is available, and then I can add more items. So for this question, I'm going to ask a few demographic variables of my respondents so that maybe I can do some analysis by those demographic variables, see if there are any differences between males and females on their ideas about web accessibility. And you have the option to make this a required question. I'm not going to do that for this demonstration, but you can make it a required question before the respondent can submit. I put, what is your gender, male, female, and then I'm going to click done and add another item. So I'm going to find out where they live to see if maybe the region that they live in affects how accessible they think the web is. And I'm going to make it a multiple choice question also to compare Texas with other states in the US as well as outside of the US. Okay. And then I'm going to add an item to find out if the person who's responding has a disability. And that would be a yes/no question, so I'll use multiple choice. And then I want to find out how often they might think about web accessibility. So how often do you think about web accessibility when you are using the internet? And I'm going to make this a scaled question, like a Likert scale, 1 to 5, or I can change how many options there are, with 1 being on the low end. So maybe I think about it never. It never really occurred to me, or very often, or somewhere in between. And then I want to add an item that talks about how accessible the respondent might think the web is in general to individuals with disabilities. And I'll make this another Likert scale item, 1 to 5, with 1 being mostly inaccessible and 5 being mostly accessible. And I want to do an open response item where they can describe a time when they might have found a website to not be accessible. There we go. And I'm going to give it a paragraph text to give them some space to write their answer. And click Done. So now as I look over my questions, I want to see if the order of the questions makes sense. So I asked them the 3 demographic variables at the beginning. That makes sense. And then I ask them how often do they think about web accessibility and how accessible do they think the web is in general. I'm going to move this how accessible they think the web is in general above how often they think about web accessibility. So to do that, I just clicked on the item and I dragged it up above. And then I'll have them describe a time when they found a website to not be accessible. And then there's a place to record something that you want the survey to say when the respondent clicks submit. So you can leave it as your response has been recorded, or you can type something new. I'm going to go ahead and say, "Thank you. Your responses have been submitted," because that sounds more like what I would say. And then you can provide the link to submit another response, publish and show a link to the results, or allow the respondents to edit responses after submitting. I'm just going to keep the default as it is to show a link to submit another response. Now, if I look at the top menu, there is a button for Choose Response Destination. So I'm going to click that. And what this does is it shows me where the responses are going to be recorded. And it's going to, in this case, create a new spreadsheet, and I can give that a name. It's given the name Web Accessibility with responses in parentheses, so I think that works like a very good name. Or I can create a new sheet within an existing spread if this is a new survey within a data set that I'm already working on. So I'm just going to create a new spreadsheet, and I'm going to click Create. So if I go back to my Google Drive, I'll see that there are actually 2 files related to this survey. I have the actual form and I have the spreadsheet with the responses. So that's important to know that there are 2 files. And I can see that I'm accepting responses. When I'm done collecting responses, I can click this button and it'll say not accepting responses. It won't allow people to add their answers. So I want to make sure that I'm accepting. And like any other Google documents, all changes are saved as you type them, so you don't have to click a save button. But this is not the form that people would do their responses on. It's the live form view. And so we can click View Live Form to see what that would look like. So this is what your respondents would see. And to send the form, to get the URL for this form, you can either click View Live Form and take the URL from the URL address bar, or you can click the Send Form button, and that gives you the link to share. It's the same link. And you can use the embedded sending options in that send form function. So let me show you what it looks like when you've got responses in your spreadsheet. So I'm going to fill in a couple of sample responses. So I will select a couple of items. Maybe I rarely think about accessibility, and maybe I have encountered accessibility on my mobile phone. Okay, and then I click Submit, and that message that I had typed in, "Thank you, your responses have been submitted," is recorded. Now if I go to the spreadsheet, I'm going to open that up for you so you can see that the response has been recorded, and here it is in my spreadsheet and gives us timestamp. So if I wanted to submit another response for a male that maybe resides in another state besides Texas that has a disability and that he finds the internet to be mostly accessible and he thinks about it a lot, and he talks about how some websites are accessible to his communication device, and he clicks Submit. And if I go to my responses, I will see that the second response has been submitted. So in my spreadsheet, I can go back to the live form view if I wanted to see that form again. I've got it open twice now. I can send the form or edit the form, so that's how you get to it from this view. And I can also show a summary of responses, and this is a really neat way to see at a glance the responses that you've gotten. So I've got two responses. I've got a male and a female response that's 50-50. And where do you currently live? I've got one that's outside of the US and that's in another state besides Texas, one that has a disability, one that does not. All respondents indicate that they think the web is pretty accessible and that there's some variability in how often they think about web accessibility, and a couple of open responses for that question of a time when they found the website to not be accessible. And it gives you an indication of when these responses were given, so they're all on the same day. And you can take screenshots of parts of these graphs and you can put them in presentations to share. Very nice that Google Form generates that for you. But you can also insert charts just like you would in an Excel spreadsheet. So you can generate charts from the data that you have in your spreadsheet. One last thing before we finish is that I wanted to show you the share settings in the spreadsheet. So currently the spreadsheet is only viewable to myself. So if I wanted to share the raw data with others, I would need to make sure that this spreadsheet is viewable to the people I want to share it with. So if I click on the share button in my spreadsheet, here's the link to the spreadsheet just like any other Google document file. And if I want to change it from private, I can make it public on the web to anyone with the link, or I could even enter the names or addresses, email addresses of the individuals I want to share it with. So I don't necessarily have to make it publicly viewable or viewable with anyone with the link. I can share it with individual people just like any other Google Doc. But if I wanted to make it anyone with the link, I can also add the ability to edit, comment, or view. So people could enter their own responses in that spreadsheet if they wanted to in that view. So if you're going to be sharing the raw data, you want to make sure that you change the share settings to have the access that you need to share it. And that is how to create a survey using Google Form and to collect responses and analyze those responses.